You've been waiting for it, and we've got it for you. Finally.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Footballguys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
Welcome to the Audible, and better late than never, but it is the Combine, and it's time to get a little refresher, as there was some interesting playoff football going on, so we had our attention divided around the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Game, and Sigmund Bloom, I know you're used to hearing Cecil Lammey. Cecil is in the co-pilot seat because, well, we don't do the all-star road trip together, but it's the roots of this partnership. And Cecil, I want to start with going back down memory lane. We would go to the Shrine Game. It was in a different place every year. Now it's settled down in Las Vegas. And then the next week, we drive down I-10 to Mobile and the Senior Bowl. And I remember it was a big deal when a player, Paul Williams, Fresno State, I'm remembering, it was a big deal when a player that was at the Shrine Game got the call up to the Senior Bowl. And it represented that they were creating positive momentum in their draft stock. They were being seen maybe in a little different light because the Senior Bowl was the creme de la creme. Maybe these things are changing as these two games now happen in the same week, and one game had an NFL association, one game did not. What's going on here in the All-Star Game world?
Yeah, it's a little bit of tea behind the scenes in the All-Star Game formats. They're still the same as they used to be, but I think we're seeing a momentum shift because of Eric Galko. Eric Galko, Audible alum, dear friend of ours. I think we've known Eric since he was like 18.
Yeah.
Like, it's been that long. One, we're old. Two, he's not, but like he was on the come up as a young up and comer. And how many people have we run into in the draft community, that were like that? Now Eric Galko runs the Shrine Bowl, and he does a fantastic job. And the Shrine Bowl has changed, going from the Houston area. You actually went to the one before me, 2006.
San Antonio.
You went to the San Antonio one. Marcus Colston was at that game. Greg Jennings was at that game. One other player I can't remember.
Tavares Jackson was at that game.
There you go. So like it bounced around, whatever, and then they settled in Tampa. They were at the Tropicana. And there's your baseball reference, Bloom. And it was like really well. I mean, the weather was great, and it was indoors, and it was like getting the attention of NFL Network and stuff. They did take a year off during the coof. I don't know what we can say on YouTube anymore and what we can't. But anyway, so like they did take a year off. And then they got on the road in Vegas, and now they've settled in Vegas, and now they have the NFL teams there coaching them, this full staffs. This is something that used to be exclusive to the Senior Bowl, where at the Shrine Bowl, I mean, how many Howard Schnellenberger practices did we see, right?
Special teams.
Yes, nothing but special teams. But so they would get, retired coaches. I remember Dan Reeves and Wade Phillips were at the Shrine Game in Orlando. Because before it was in Tampa, it was in Orlando for 2 years. That was 2010 and 2011. So like and Wade Phillips, I don't think he was coaching in the league then, but so it was like him and Dan Reeves, and they practiced in a ballroom. They broke a chandelier. And I remember asking Dan Reeves and Wade Phillips about it. They're like, we practiced in parking garages. So like the Shrine was like barely hanging on. There was that 1 year, I tell the tale, like there was 1 year I was going to go to the NFLPA game, which is in LA. And now it's, even further back than it used to be because of the Shrine Game, the strides the Shrine Game has made. But it was Nate Sudfeld that kept me going to the Shrine. I was like, okay, I got to see Nate Sudfeld. I really liked his game. And so now if we just focus on quarterbacks, I'm going to spend more time talking about the Shrine Bowl quarterbacks than I am the Senior Bowl quarterbacks. Now, last year, the Shrine Bowl almost had Malik Willis, but last year the Shrine Bowl had Skylar Thompson and Brock Purdy. And just the setup, one, it's Vegas, so it's easy to get to. There's plenty of places to stay. Two, the weather's not a problem. The weather's always a factor in Mobile. This year it was okay. But even though it was okay, it's still like freezing for part of practice, and then you're, just too hot, or it's raining or whatever. And 2 years ago, I went to see you in New Orleans. because one day it was just like a rain out, and I'm like, well, I can sit in my hotel room in Mobile, Alabama, and do nothing, or I can drive 2.5 hours and go see you. So anyway, like, I think the talent structure is changing. I think if you're the Senior Bowl, you have to consider, because now you don't have the NFL coaching staffs anymore. You have a collection of assistants from the NFL. But because you have a collection of assistants and you don't have full team staffs, like the Patriots and Falcons ran the Shrine game, the Shrine Bowl. The Patriots and Falcons. So Belichick was out there coaching guys at the Shrine Bowl. You know, Arthur Smith was out there coaching guys at the Shrine Bowl. You had organized practices. You had teams that knew what they wanted to do. You had a more scout-friendly participation because they did things that, you know, the scouts want to see. And the talent is one thing. So I think the talent is shifting, that the Shrine Bowl and Eric Galko are making a big push on Jim Nagy and the Senior Bowl. And I know Jim a little bit. I don't know him as much as I know Galko, but you have sort of this rivalry and this competition between these two games, and the power is shifting. One, Mobile's difficult to get to. Two, the weather's awful. Like, you have to consider, and I don't think the Senior Bowl will do this, but you have to consider moving from Mobile, because now the NFL's in bed with the Shrine Bowl same week as the Pro Bowl. And if you're an agent, let's say you are, and rewind, maybe Malik Willis's agent would rethink this. Maybe Malik Willis would have gone higher had he gone to the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah.
Because if you're an agent, your client's around all the NFL guys, because all the Pro Bowlers are there. So you're around the NFL guys, you're coached by NFL staffs, you're in Las Vegas, week of the Pro Bowl. I mean, that's our agent friends, Bloom, we know that's kind of a time for them to show off, right? And to show off their clients. You do that in the middle of Alabama or the southern part of Alabama, whatever. And I do love Mobile. I have a soft spot for Mobile. It's fine. But I think we've seen from where the Shrine, and we saw it at a pretty good juncture, and then it kind of bounced around, and then it was like barely holding on. And now the Shrine is making this surge. And I think it's a good thing in the end, because we get competition between these two games. We get to see really good talent at both games. And this year, just for this year, the quarterbacks were better. But if we rewind to last year, we could say that Brock Purdy, Skylar Thompson, that was more relevant to see than Desmond Ridder, you know, and Carson Strong, right? And I know Kenny Pickett was there too, but still, like, yeah, Shrine Bowl, they're putting up a fight. So, you know, things are changing in the pre-draft process, Bloom. I still miss you every year, though.
Yeah. Those were the days.
I've been going 17 years. I'll let everyone know publicly. Like, I'm probably going to get to 20 and then be like, okay, because you can watch everything remotely.
Exactly.
Right? My buddy Chad Ryder, your buddy too. Shout out Chad Ryder from NFL Network. Speaking of our original road trip, and man alive, Josh just didn't like him. That's okay. I don't think Chad liked Josh either. But anyway, now we really are spilling the tea. But I remember watching Keontae Ingram last year, and Chad texted me, and he's like, "You watch this Ingram kid?" I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Are you here?" And he goes, "No, I'm in Wisconsin. I'm watching practices remotely." So, like, I think we're all just kind of getting smarter about that. I can watch the Senior Bowl coaches film from here. I can watch it today, right now. So, like, I can watch it live, you know, from Colorado. So, yeah, I think things are changing. Scouts, by the way, teams aren't sending everybody like they used to, you know. And to me, this is my get off my lawn moment, Bloom. I think the Senior Bowl is getting a little too touristy. And I've had conversations with people, even with people with football guys, being like, our brand. And I'm like, a brand? Like, you need to be there for the right reasons. You need to be there for the players. You need to be there for the game. You need to be there for the knowledge. I think too many people, because the Senior Bowl, here's the secret, and they'll probably get mad if I reveal this. They'll credential anybody. Draftfrommymomsbasement.com. Yeah, exactly. They'll credential anybody. I want to go to the Senior Bowl. I've had so many people tell me that, and I'm like, just go.
Just go.
Like, just go. And by the way, the practices are open to the public.
Yeah.
Because and this is a minor gripe. Jim Nagy, I love your game, but showed up bright and early, first day of practice. They didn't have any rosters. So we're sitting there and like practice is going on. I'm like, sure wish I had a roster. And then this like fan comes up, really, really nice guy, big Georgia fan, I think. And he'd like come in for the Senior Bowl and he had rosters. And we're like, where did you get those? He's like, we got them at the front. And so it's like, okay, so I bribed him. I think I gave him a bottle of water for a roster. So I'm like, okay, so like, yes, you want to go to the Senior Bowl, go to the Senior Bowl. But I get sick and tired when I see people that go there to take selfies and not to actually do the work, because it's more than getting drunk at Veets. Okay. And by the way, all that kind of stuff is becoming a little bit more closed off because the NFL figured out like, oh crap, we're having like coaches. How many times have I talked about certain coaches grinding on chunky interns? Like okay, like you know, you have these people in public now. You have a larger spotlight. You have your phones, everybody. You have Twitter. So do you want to see said old married coach grinding on somebody that's not his wife at some bar in Alabama? So the NFL, the spots to find information are becoming a little bit more of a well-guarded secret. So it's becoming more like a tourist thing to say, I'm going to cover the NFL and I'm at the Senior Bowl. And it used to be a beautiful thing. And I think it's becoming a little bastardized because too many people are there for the wrong reasons. I see people go to practices without a notebook. I'm like, what the F are you here for? Sorry, Joe. Like you're not here for the game. Glory to the players, glory to the game. It's been our mantra from day one. And yeah, the Shrine, you still get that feel. The Shrine feels like the Senior did, you know, when what Scott Reynolds and Jim Wyatt from Pewter Report are showing us around. Like that's how it feels now. And it feels good, man. It feels good. Senior is still good. The process is still good. The talent is good. But man alive, there's too many people that go. And I don't think they're going for the right reasons.
Yeah. See, we're old enough now. Sometimes I think, is the world changing or are we just getting older? We're old enough now that we're on the other side of those "you should have been here when" conversations. Now that we're the ones saying "you should have been here when."
Right.
But it was a more of a purist scene. But I think the main thing, at least if you're dipping your toe into this draft world, is that there isn't necessarily a tier difference. We're going to start with the Shrine Bowl, but that doesn't mean, like you said, starting with the quarterbacks, that the Senior Bowl quarterbacks are better, even though 10, 15 years ago, the Senior Bowl invite is what you wanted. Okay, starting with the Shrine Game quarterbacks, and I guess this is the time for you to tell us who might be this year's Skylar Thompson or Brock Purdy, who may not go until the third day of the draft, but be more impactful than some of the quarterbacks going before them.
Yeah, and the quarterback that was getting some conversation is maybe the best in this class, period. And that it's more than just agent-fed information. Now, I know Aiden O'Connell's agents will be promoting that. Like, of course, Aiden O'Connell from Purdue is the best quarterback in this class. He's not. I think that's Bryce Young, and I think that's clearly Bryce Young. But Aiden O'Connell was the guy to kind of, you know, show out and show up on a daily basis. Because one thing that we've learned from this process is that you got to do it more than just Monday. And I know the days of the practices have changed, but it was always like, and I remember our first game, and every year I always forget his name. Was the Hampton receiver? Who was it?
I can't remember who. I can't remember.
It was like Monday was great, and then by Wednesday he was a guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like once these players get used to kind of how it goes, you know what I mean? Because this is a big job interview. And that's one of my first notes on Aiden O'Connell was like, okay, you do it the first day. Are you doing it the rest of the time? And he did, and he kept it up from the pocket. Now, I think he's a little bit more mobile than people give him credit for. I think he throws better on the run than some people give him credit for. Again, this is an all-star game recap. Just as a rewind and as a constant reminder, this is our Lorenzo Booker alert, Bloom. They can look good in practice and not be real good in the NFL, or the opposite. I remember last year I was so excited about Brock Purdy, and I showed up and I watched him, and I was like, "Ooh, that was a little rough," but it's fit in the NFL. Aiden O'Connell finds the right fit, then he's going to be a guy that you want to know about in your fantasy leagues or just NFL fans in general. Like, you're going to want to know that name in that game because it shows up, and he showed out for sure on a daily basis. I appreciated that. I thought it was great to see him out there and to be consistent and to have the overtop delivery and all those sorts of things. Tanner Morgan made my notebook, the Minnesota quarterback, because if you're talking about more of a, kind of rusher, scrambler, daring do, moxie, whatever you have, then he's that type of passer. He's that type of quarterback. So it's not really going to look great all the time with Tanner Morgan, but he can kind of improvise and think on his feet. So those are all quality things. And then finally, DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson. Now, if you rewind, and I love how the draft world works, Bloom, because it was like Sam Howell, 3 years ago, Sam Howell was like, he could be the number 1 pick, and then he went to the 5th round. So Dorian Thompson Robinson, DTR, I always got to slow down when I say that. He is kind of that sort of prospect. Like early on at UCLA, people had felt like this guy could be something. And here's the other thing. I got a bunch of soapbox moments, Bloom. Basically, y'all just showed up to hear me bitch for half an hour. So I apologize. But anyway, another soapbox moment is like, you can know college football, you don't know the draft. And I'm not saying I'm the greatest and I know everything and whatever. I'm just saying, like, there's so many things can be shaded by college football fans. I've said it before and he hates me, so I'll say it anyway. Like, Joel Klatt is the best college football analyst in the country. He doesn't know the draft. It's two different things. So, like, if you college football fans a few years ago would be like, Dorian Thompson Robinson will be the best quarterback, and then he just doesn't make it. And the inconsistencies you still see there, but the tools, he's toolsy. The physical is easy to see. It's the mental part. It's the processing speed. These are what, executives have always told me, like, watch for the processor, watch for the processor. It's there. It's there with DTR. If someone wants to take a chance on him in day 3, maybe you could get a quality starter out of him. So, yes, the Shrine Bowl had better quarterbacks, and those 3 stood out at varying degrees. Aiden O'Connell, though, he's the sleeper to watch here.
Yeah. And certainly, as we step through this, I want to accentuate something you said, that at these games, if you're watching the practices or you're reading people's practice reports, like you said, Cease, there are things, Lorenzo Booker, there are things that make you look good in practice. There are physical qualities, athletic qualities that really make you stand out in practice that don't necessarily translate to the game. And also, it isn't necessarily being the most outstanding player in practice, although there are certain players we watched in practice, and you could tell they were practicing against an ideal. They weren't practicing against the other players to stand out against the other players. You could see Danny Amendola comes to mind, where it's the craftsmanship approach to your game. But more than that, a lot of these players are getting coached in an NFL way for the first time. Remember Mike Wallace? Oh, I'm just learning to run routes. Mike Wallace told us.
That interview's still on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just learning now in the last 3 days. So seeing a player improve from Monday to Wednesday, or the first practice to the third practice, is really important because it shows a team, it shows the scouts what's there to be unearthed that maybe wasn't by the coaching. Okay, staying with the Shrine game, we'll go to the running backs. And the player I'm going to toss out as a lead-in is Tavion Thomas. Just because, we've got committee back approaches. Certainly he's a player, I think, that has gotten some buzz in fantasy leagues. We're always looking to, by the way, get your Footballguys rookie guide, join.footballguys.com/rookie guide. It's free. Some of the best work we've done in the off season. Any year I've been there, and always, of course, pre-order your RSP, mattwaldman.com. But we're always looking for that second tier rookie, right? Damian Pierce, Isaiah Pacheco. We're always looking for that guy. Could Tavion Thomas be one of those guys this year?
Yeah, I believe he can be. And the Pacheco move always makes me mad because it was like right there for you, George Payton, and you're just like, huh? Yeah. Let's get a Samford return man anyway. I always remember the Audible fans haven't heard me constantly complain about George Payton like I do on Denver Airwaves. Who are like, stop bringing up Tariq Woolen. Well, don't take Delarian Turner-Yell, the pick right before Tariq Woolen, and who was a standout at the Senior Bowl. And then don't take anybody, especially Montra, washing over Isaiah Pacheco, who is a standout at the Shrine Bowl. Tavian Thomas is that guy. Now, here's my problem with Tavian Thomas. And I think I love him more than I loved Keontae Ingram last year. I still got a soft spot for Keontae Ingram, but Tavian Thomas, large, physical, swift, powerful stride, just destroys the ground when he runs. The problem then becomes, because I was watching Tavian going into this game, knowing is one of my favorite sleeper backs in this class. And yes, K-Wanted, it's a sleeper. He can't catch. I'm sorry. Like he fights it too much. And that was on film. Like, you have to prove, because this is a dotting of the I's and a crossing of the T's. Okay. It's the last time you're going to play football until you play football again in the NFL. And with Thomas, like, they were doing the individual stuff. And I remember in my notebook, which I think is right here, I was just like, wow, look at him catch the ball. Look at him catch the ball when he's uncovered. And then they get to team drills and he's like dropping. He dropped 2 passes in a row in team drills. One was on a Texas route over the middle. You got to make that play or you're going to be a 2-down thumper. So Tavian Thomas is that guy. He's the best back at the Shrine Bowl, in my opinion, but he's a 2-down thumper. That's what he is. I think he could be a good 2-down thumper, but he's not one of those like outlet receiver backs where you can throw to and like, okay, he's not great. He's not running routes out there, but at least he'll catch the ball and get you something. Like, no, not unless his concentration improves. I was really disappointed in Tavian Thomas. Now, hopefully he totally proves me wrong or whatever. Like, yeah, that'd be awesome because I love his game as a runner. But this game in the NFL is so much more than just running the ball anymore. But Tavian Thomas highlights the running backs here at the Shrine Bowl. I have appreciation for Jordan Mims, the Fresno State kid, who's got quite a bit of ants in his pants, if you will. It can make you miss type of stuff. That was one of my primary notes on Mims there, watching him run. I thought Kazmir Allen from UCLA also showed some of that jitterbug type of stuff where he's just kind of underneath. He's the Texas route guy. He's the guy that could almost play a little bit of a slot receiver. And even though he's listed as a fullback / tight end, I will bring up Jack Coletto, who basically did everything for the Beavers. And everyone's going to talk about Luke Musgrave. In fact, Bloom, we're going to talk about Luke Musgrave quite a bit leading up to the draft. But Jack Coletto for the Beavers there, he did everything, played all positions and can run the Wildcat. And I think if you're looking for that Broncos Taysom Hill type of like gadget guy, Jack Coletto is that. So even though he's a fullback or maybe a tight end, I think he's just kind of a use check type of, Hill, whatever, move him around chess piece. So Jack Coletto certainly made my notebook quite a bit for his versatility and skill as a fullback / running back / tight end / gadget quarterback, whatever.
Yeah, that I want to see every team with the Taysom Hill type. Okay, I'm going to veer off and toss you a general question, Cease, because paying attention to the talk around the Senior Bowl and Shrine game, we have 2 counter forces here. One is a name, image, likeness, pay. Players can get paid in college now, which hopefully can allow more players to develop at the college level and spend more time in the incubator. See, how many times did we hear about too many underclassmen are declaring? Lots of players are getting bad advice. They're declaring before they're ready. If they just stayed in college for another year, that would increase their draft stock. And now the flip side of that is you have a lot of people saying, hey, at this point, if a player's in the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, then it's not necessarily a demerit, but you wonder, well, what, you weren't good enough to come out early? So what do you think about that? Because it really was more of a prestige thing to even get to the Senior Bowl and even the Shrine game. Do you think that it is tarnishing these players that they are spending the whole time in college and not getting the NFL interest before they come out?
Yeah, I say everyone has their own path. And the NFL and college football isn't the incubator anymore that it used to be. College football used to be, the joke was it's the NFL's minor league and it's free.
Right.
Well, the NFL, I think you're fat enough, NFL. If there's anyone that could use a little tightness, I can't tell you to lose weight, but I can tell you to get tighter. It's the NFL. Like, pay for a developmental league. Just pay. Your game would be better because college football is it's a different game. That's why I say college football analysts are not draft analysts, because
Right.
you're looking for different skills, different things translate. And I take the Najee Harris approach. Najee Harris didn't need to play in the Senior Bowl. He's a little bit banged up, whatever. He still went every day. And I appreciate that, so there is that kind of camaraderie for the guys that get the invite. Cause some, like on our trips, Bloom, like Matt Ryan didn't go.
Right.
We're like, okay, Matt Ryan's going to be a top 5 pick, but Joe Flacco was there and he was a first rounder. So like, yeah, I can see why some guys would say no thanks or what have you. And also these games are considering more underclassmen or what have you. I think that could maybe further distance the talent between the two. But yeah, for me, I see it as a prestige thing. And sometimes it does take a little bit more time to get out there. And, we'll see how that affects these games going forward.
And you anticipated where I was going with this, because when you look over the classic fantasy positions, you don't necessarily see first round names at these games anymore. But But at the Shrine Bowl, there was one, and he didn't really practice much, so I know he might not have a lot of space in your notebook. But I'm going to lead off and hand off to you with wide receivers with one Zay Flowers, who was in a lot of first round mocks.
Yeah, and my first day, he wasn't in my notebook at all. And so I remember telling Andrew Mason, our dear friend, like, where the hell was Zay Flowers? Like, where the hell was Zay Flowers? Like, I watch almost the skill positions exclusively. I'll pay attention to other stuff, Broncos related things or whatever. But my first day, I walked away with 0 notes, not from warmups, not from, individual drills, not from one-on-one drills, not from team drills, absolutely 0 notes on Zay Flowers. And I was pissed. I was like, the dude's probably the best player here.
Yeah.
And he didn't make my notebook. And again, not that I see everything or I know everything or whatever, but I was just like, damn, that sucks. So I made sure to okay, find him, see where he's at, all those sorts of things. And you can tell, I don't think he was dogging it whatsoever, Bloom, because when he turns it on, and there are other receivers there that I can talk about that did some really good things that I will talk about. But when Flowers turns it on, he's got the it factor. He's got that electric movement, the precision with his movement. It's almost as if he's counting the steps of the defender, and he understands momentum of how a body is moving. It's like an inertia thing. He's a natural. So not only is he explosive and he's strong and all these sorts of things, but he understands the small nuances of how to get open, which there's not a lot of college receivers. Most of the time, you're just out athleting guys out there. But with Zay Flowers, who did make my notebook on the second day and did make it in the notebook and the day after that, like Zay Flowers, he is that dude for sure. And he's a player to watch. He's a player that people are going to know in the pros. Because he's got the it factor, and that it factor is the nuance. It's the knowledge. It's the football intelligence to understand spacing and concepts and what a defender is trying to do, how defenders are trying to box him. Like he understood defensive concepts like a quarterback, and that's incredibly rare to see at the wide receiver position. So lots of good news there. If you want a larger receiver as well, A.T. Perry. I wish I could call him AT-AT like Star Wars, but AT from Wake Forest, 6'3", $195. He knows how to use his frame. He'll go out there and get the ball at all times. I think Kearis Jackson is kind of that, Vincent Brown sort of solid receiver, consistent in what he does. And he's a Georgia kid that can, find a home with the team. I don't think he'll ever flourish in the NFL, but be a solid pro. And, sometimes, especially at the Shrine Bowl in years past, that's what you were looking for. You were looking for those type of players. I move on to, I started calling him 7-Eleven. Demario Douglas, he's always open. So he's easy to find. By the way, same team as Zay Flowers. So when Demario Douglas is getting my attention over Zay Flowers in practice, that can tell you a little bit about his game. And so I would tell Mace, I was like, he's 7'11", man. And he wore number 11. So it was easy, but it was like, he's always open. Like everything he does, he gets open. And he does it with quickness. He does it with guile. But we're talking about sideline awareness, being able to tiptoe, all those sorts of things. It was a good week for Demario Douglas. Again, late round guy. Remember the name. Dallas Daniels from Jackson State showed some good things as well. Jadakiss Bonds from Hampton, another one of those larger receivers, I thought showed well as well. Jake Bobo, not as much. Didn't make my notebook very much there either. And let me see. I don't want to forget anybody. No, that's it. I think Michael Jefferson again. So you had some big guys there. You had quite a few big guys. So they kind of melted together. And it was the smaller receivers. It was Zay Flowers, Demario Douglas, and a bunch of other guys. But the big guys were okay. I don't know if it's a good year for big receivers in the later rounds, but definitely remember the name Demario Douglas, and everyone already should know it was Zay Flowers.
Yeah, Douglas played with Malik Willis. And in these games, maybe for the players coming from big programs, it is just crossing the T and dotting the I. But for players from the smaller programs, it's a way to prove that they belong. So Demario Douglas belongs. Tight end, this is a good tight end class. This is a really good tight end class.
Yep.
And maybe if we look at the two positions side by side, the position side by side of the two games, maybe there's a little more separation between the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl tight end.
Yes.
But leading or at least based on visibility and maybe early draft rankings, leading this group at the Shrine Bowl would be Luke Schoonmaker.
Yes.
So let's talk about Schoonmaker and the tight ends at the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, and this game is where I fell in love with Chigi Okonkwo, which how much did I talk about Chigi last year? Like, you got to get Okonkwo. And, so this tight end class is exceptional. And I've triggered some Broncos fans when I said, I got about 7 or 8 guys that are as good or better than Greg Dulcich. Because I think I already told this story, Bloom. If I did, please tell me, because I don't want to repeat myself. I do that enough anyway. I blame Jim Rome. When I was in the Broncos locker room, when they're cleaning out their lockers on the final day, and I was like, who's this media member like with beautiful hair?
Yeah.
And it was Greg Dulcich in plain clothes. Like, he does not look like a football player. And I know body type, whatever, I'm stereotyping, but like, yeah, Dulcich, you could probably, maybe bulk up a little bit or something. Maybe you wouldn't have the hamstring injuries. Like, I don't know. I'm just guessing. But this tight end class is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. This is the year. If you need a tight end, you should get one. Now, a few names to know. Schoonmaker is the first on the list to know a player that knows how to use his frame, all the standard tight ends things that you want, but then also can be a threat after the catch. That's another thing you're looking for there as well. Now, Albany, 6'5", 253, Thomas Greeny did make my notebook because I thought he was a wide receiver. Like, at 6'5", 253, you're not built like a wide receiver, but you're moving like a wide receiver. So I liked seeing the way that he caught the ball cleanly. He would go up and get it and rip it away from defenders. I appreciated his effort there. The Tennessee kid, Princeton Fant, he's 6'1", 238, some more of your H-back type, and he's more of the run after the catch guy there as well. And in these practices, whereas running backs is difficult because there's no live tackling, but you're going to watch the way they move. With tight end, you're not going to see him block, but you're going to see them, or you're not going to see them hold up as a blocker. You're going to see how they work the field. And I thought that Fant did a really good job on that. To the other side and the other team, the tight ends, Leonard Taylor from Cincinnati, I felt had some receiving type weapons, but it was Blake Forrest, Blake Whitehurt that stood out for me on that side. What is this? The East roster I'm looking at? Yeah, the East roster. And it was his play in coming back to the ball, the little nuances I like to see from tight ends that made him stand out for me. So the Senior Bowl tight ends were better, but there's a couple of names, Schoonmaker being the first one, that you need to know from the Shrine Bowl that could make some plays in the NFL.
Now, going over to the Senior Bowl and starting with quarterbacks, I'll just start off this way, Cease. Is Hendon Hooker the next Jalen Hurts?
I like that. He could be, that's for sure. He could be. He might be the best quarterback in this draft class, period, when all is said and done. He needs to get healthy, stay healthy, all those sorts of things. And that's a greater conversation. And the Senior Bowl is a time where, okay, here's the problem with the Senior Bowl this year. It's another get off my lawn moment, Bloom. And I appreciate you for putting up with me because I feel like I'm just complaining today. But like for me, it was the way that practices were run. You did not get to see the things that you needed to see. Scouts are already, they're there to socialize or whatever. But when you look at the way practices are run, when you have a bunch of assistants that are now running practice for the first time, that's why you're seeing these things. And there were so many times I take, for example, Jaron Hall. I go into that week, I'm like, okay, Jaron Hall, he's your Russell Wilson type of guy. I'm really, really excited. And then you just don't see much. Now, the interesting thing about Hall is he was kind of my Brock Purdy this year, which maybe is good news for him, Bloom. He's the player that I go in and I'm like, okay, he's my favorite. I'm looking forward to him. And then I was so disappointed. One, I got to tell you, man, the practices were run like trash. I mean, just absolute garbage for what you need to see, like rep. It was like slow. There were, different periods, guys standing around. Players didn't know what they were supposed to do. Like they would stop practice during drills. They would stop it to like, now this is how you run this drill. It's like, it's one-on-ones. Line up, throw, go. So with the Jaron Hall, who I'll start with specifically, and I'll talk about the others, but I was like, damn it, I wanted to see more. Now, the nice thing is Jaron Hall did improve as the week went on, but that first day was so bad. It was so bad. So many errant passes, didn't know where he was going, didn't know what he was doing. Like just, I don't know if it was the practices. I don't know if it was the lack of proper coaching. I'm not exactly sure what it was with Jaron Hall, but that skill's there. And it's kind of like when he was able to get to team drills, he would look better because he was like running around, when he was standing in the pocket or standing there doing one-on-ones with zero pressure, he just didn't deliver the ball. The ball didn't explode from his hands. And it seemed like when he ran and he had some pressure, even though they can't sack him, that's when Jaron Hall kind of took off, so to speak. Jake Haener might have been the best quarterback there. I don't think Malik Cunningham did anything that was of note. I know people were interested about him, but the Fresno State kid, Jake Haener, he was probably the best quarterback from a day-to-day basis out there for the national team. On the American team, as I look over the roster now and I go over my notes, let me see here. We have Max Dugan. He made my notebook consistently. Again, the quarterbacks here, these are not the quarterbacks you're looking for, to quote Obi-Wan. Max Dugan was okay, but it was nothing compared to anything that you saw from Jaron Hall or Jake Haener. Those were the two. And again, if I say Jaron Hall, Aiden O'Connell, well, it's Aiden O'Connell all day, like not even close. And it kind of made me go, okay, is there a power shift going on? The power shift that was almost there last year. I think it happened this year. The quarterbacks were much better in Vegas than they were in Mobile. And that's why I don't have a whole lot to say or a whole lot of notes on anybody else not named Max Dugan.
Well, I know a lot of people have had a lot of things to say about a running back from my neck of the woods now, my adopted new hometown, New Orleans, and Tulane. And what a year. Tulane was in every Mardi Gras parade. They had a float like in every. I got a really cool doubloon that commemorates their amazing season and Cotton Bowl victory. This player's from Ponchatoula, which I got to tell you, folks, if you have never had a Ponchatoula strawberry, then you've never really had a strawberry. How sweet will it be for folks that see? This is, I think, everybody's favorite sleeper. There, I said it. Running back, Tyjae Spears.
Yeah, and God bless America. I still call him Tajay Sharp from once in a while. I'm like, it's not Tajay, but Spears are sharp, or at least he should be. So Spears is a sharp player. I don't think he's Alvin Kamara. Okay, put on my Broncos hat. I don't think he's Alvin Kamara, But if you want that weapon, Spears is just a weapon. And I guess that's fitting.
There you go.
But that's who he is. I did appreciate, because they still did backs on backers. Thank God they did backs on backers, because a lot of their drills sucked. But as a space weapon, you can definitely see he's not afraid to go inside. He's just not good at it, and that's fine. You kind of expect that just looking at his size. But I think as a receiving weapon, making people look silly, he's willing to take on backers in pass blocking, which is good. He did get beat a couple of times in my notebook. But there were also a few times where it's like, it was a good effort, and a lot of pass blocking. And this is how rookies get on the field, especially if you're a third down guy like Spears is going to be. Like, and I don't imagine he'll be more of a full-time guy. So get your sleeper talk ready for Spears, but also know that he's going to be limited by his size, because I don't think he could put on 10 pounds of muscle on his frame. But I do like the willingness. A lot of pass blocking is want to and desire in addition to technique. He's got the want to. He gets better technique. He'll get better at that, and he'll get on the field. And he's one of those, fast break type of weapons. Jet McKinnon. Can I say that, Bloom? Jet McKinnon. Like,
sure,
that sort of prospect is what you're looking at. And obviously he's the favorite of everybody's there in Mobile for good reason. For me, it's on the flip side. And Spears, of course, is the smaller back and, a dangerous weapon sort of things. But I got to tell you, I thought you were going to talk about the Austin's very own Roschon Johnson.
Sure.
Because if you look at Texas backups, I'll bring up the name Priest Holmes. Now, he's not Priest Holmes, okay? But everyone talk about Bijan Robinson. That's fine. Robinson should go in the first round. Honestly, I'm surprised Robinson is going to perform at the scouting combine, because if you're Bijan Robinson, you have nothing to prove. The dude's incredibly talented, but behind him, Roschon Johnson is that guy as well. Roschon Johnson could have started for 70 teams, 80 teams, 90 teams. Give me the number, Bloom. Whatever the number is, it's probably right. Like, he's that sort of 5-star talent. Just, it was like Priest Holmes was behind Ricky Williams. Right. And even Priest Holmes had to start as like a reserve guy with the Ravens. He got his chance with the Chiefs and he took off. I think Roschon Johnson is the player to know, showed more 3-down skill, because I had a little kind of mini competition in my head between Tavion Thomas and Roschon Johnson, and Johnson won. And Johnson won because he's a modern back. Tavion's more the throwback, but Roschon can play on all 3 downs, and he's a fantastic runner. And again, you can't see tackling, but he's a fantastic runner and proved as a receiver to the backfield. Pass protection could use a little bit of work. I think he had more wins than he did losses, and he was probably the best back in pass protection in Mobile. But I certainly love what Roschon Johnson did down there, and he's a player that all of us need to know. And wherever he goes, it'll be like Khalil Herbert, right? When Khalil Herbert was at this game, and I was like, Khalil Herbert can play. And then, oh, man, he's behind David Montgomery. Well, guess what? Now he's the man, and everyone knows Khalil Herbert can play. Roschon Johnson will be that guy.
Yeah. How many LSU backup running backs that made all-star games? Or Matt Castle, playing behind Matt Leinart for all those years. There was no Zay Flowers among the wide receivers at the Shrine Bowl, but there was a Tank. Talk about weapons, Cease. About Tank Dell and the rest of the receivers in Mobile.
Yeah, the rest of the receivers in Mobile. I got to say, Michael Wilson stole the show. Like, Michael Wilson going into that game, and again, this is where college football fans, like, I love that you love college football. It doesn't mean you know what the draft is all about. But when you look at a Michael Wilson, he just gets it. College football fans love him, and I think draft fans should love him. And I think whatever NFL team gets him is going to love him, because much like Zay Flowers, and this is what you're looking for, Bloom, like the physical stuff is what I know, for me at least, like the physical stuff is what I always used to be fascinated by. It's just like physical. It's like, yeah, but that can only take you so far. It's good for college, but it's not good for pros. And just in talking to executives, Scott McLuhan, I always bring him up when he told me, like, the physical stuff's easy to see. And I was like, yeah, a little embarrassed, like, I know. But like the mental side of this game, the nuance that it takes, the fact that you come back to the ball, the fact that you high point the ball, the fact that you have late hands. I love Michael Wilson's late hands. Late hands are probably one of my favorite skills to look for now when you take those shot plays at these sort of all-star games, and they'll throw it up there. Receiver's tracking a ball, and the defender's got his back to the ball. He doesn't know if the ball's coming in, unless you're running like this for 5 seconds because the ball's coming to you, and then the defender can break it up. Wilson will run, he'll kind of glance, and then go like this, like Velcro, just like bam, ball's right there. I love it. Michael Wilson was the player. He was my favorite receiver in Mobile this year to watch because of that nuance and because of how he knew just the little things and what it takes to play at the wide receiver position. Now, moving on. Dontavian Wicks, yes, wide receiver from Virginia, made my notebook. I like his hustle athletically. I think that was one of my first notes about him, is like he's giving full effort out there, and you got to appreciate that. Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss was a standout player for me, as well as Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State. These are players, again, that I don't think are going to go as high as some people think, but these are players that have that workman-like ethic, the work ethic that you can get out there and do something with them at the pro level. I'm just looking over my other notes here. Darius Davis, TCU, one of my favorite players. Explosive skills. I try to stay away from the physical stuff because it's like, we should already know the physical stuff. But like Darius Davis is a player that I think has sharpening of the tools, as the way that I put it in my notes, that you can get the most out of at the pro level, which includes that explosive playmaking ability. So Darius Davis, to me, but Michael Wilson, he was the man every day, consistent every day.
Yeah, and I think you bring up multiple times, and I think it's a great point to again underscore that what makes a player a great college player isn't what makes them a great pro player, and isn't necessarily what creates the pro projection. And while we're talking about receivers, I remember how probably if you're watching practices at one of these all-star games, the most important thing to watch is the release. That's what teams are looking for. Remember Aaron Kelly? Aaron Kelly had all the physical tools you would want. Couldn't release against press coverage. Couldn't get a release. And some of that's hands and feet working together. Some of that's having a plan. Like you said, there's a mental side to it. But that's the kind of thing you want to watch. Physical tools, like our good friend Josh Norris would say, don't count it twice. They're probably in the game because of their physical tools. So if you see the physical tools in practice, that's not a big reveal. That's what got them there. But what about the skills? What about the skills that you need in the NFL? There's a lot of skilled tight ends at this Senior Bowl. And like you said, we're going to talk about Luke Musgrave, but he's not the only one.
No.
There's probably maybe as many as 3 or 4 tight ends that will go in the top 10 off the board, and we could see 10 or more in the first and second day of the draft. So this is one to really listen up, because one of the things, as I did our What We Learned series, we're up to running backs now, a lot of rookie tight ends made an impact this year. You mentioned Okonkwo, you mentioned Dulcich, there's Daniel Bellinger,
Isaiah
Likely. There were so many.
Jelani
Woods. There's so many rookies that made an impact. Cade Otton, rookies that maybe weren't expected to play in their rookie year. Because remember, tight ends of these positions, other than quarterback, I guess, has the steepest learning curve. You're learning 2 positions, and many rookie tight ends from last year defied that and made an impact in their rookie year, got significant playing time, and this class is going to be better. So listen.
Yes, this class is going to be better, and Luke Musgrave is fast. He's fast, and I believe they had the GPS data, Bloom, which is fascinating. He was like the 8th fastest player at the Senior Bowl of all players of any position. He's a flipping tight end. God, I wish I could cuss. But anyway, Luke Musgrave is so good, he makes me want to cuss. Sorry, Joe. You're Sorry Joe Rookie of the Year is Luke Musgrave, because damn it, you're going to be like, holy, shut your mouth. Look what that guy did. And I probably got us demonetized just for saying that. I did that once on YouTube, and I was like, why the hell did we get demonetized? It was because I said, holy, shut your mouth.
I just shouldn't talk about the New Orleans internet, remember?
Oh, yeah.
I was responsible for life. Don't say it.
So Luke Musgrave is that dude. Okay, he's a weapon. He's fast. He's physical. He can block. He can do it all. He's a perfect tight end. Will Mallory, Miami, made my notebook multiple times. And in fact, it was one of those like is he a wide receiver? Again, I was working without a roster. I was like, that Miami wide receiver is pretty good. And it wasn't a receiver. It was Will Mallory, the tight end. So if you think about, your David Njoku's, those type of players that we've seen from Miami there as well, Mallory was that player for me that jumped off the page and jumped off the practice field. So Musgrave, Mallory put on a show with the American team, national team. Again, kind of stuck on Purdue, man, but Payne Durham from Purdue was out there showing, okay, why was he Aiden O'Connell's favorite player, favorite receiver? Well, it's because all he knows how to do is get open and threaten a defense after the catch and can box out the smaller defenders. So I loved what he showed there. Josh Wiley from Cincinnati showed well as well. Not Evan Hull. Davis Allen, Clemson kid, also did a really good job there as well. And it's the Cincinnati Trey Tucker. So we had a couple of wide receiver / tight end there for the Bearcats that were out making plays. And again, especially working without a roster for that first part of practice, I was like, is that a tight end? Or is that a wide receiver? You saw that from some of these players out there, and a great crop of tight ends at the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl had the edge at tight end. And certainly guys like Mallory, guys like Musgrave, they'll make you shiver in your boots.
Yeah, on the old man theme. Miami used to be tight end U. There was a run there. Jeremy Shockey, Greg Olson, Kellen Winslow II. Obviously, that one's a little tainted now. Even more recently, Brevin Jordan, Clive Walford. He was a good prospect, right? Chris Herndon. There's a potential that was never reached. Jimmy Graham. A lot of tight ends. Will Mallory, the next in line on the Audible. I think tomorrow at our regular 11 a.m. time.
Oh,
Snorkel Scuba Submarine, going deep. And we love you, folks. We do truly love you. It lifts my spirits to get to be in the yellow boxes here with Cecil, but especially to be interacting with everyone in the chat room, see the familiar icons and names and vibes from our people. And we're not going to change. We're just going to keep doing what we've been doing. And you like that. And that makes us feel really good. So coming up next, tomorrow, Snorkel Scuba Submarine. It's time to adjust your dynasty rosters. Use those extra spots at the end wisely. Again, join.footballguys.com/rookie guide for your free rookie guide. And make sure you go to mattwaldman.com to pre-order your RSP. It is that time of the year. It is the draft season. You know who the real ones are. You're one of the real ones because you love football guys and we love you.